So, Joe, just jumping right in, has The Rock yet commented on your bump taking ability and pulling off his dad's moves?
I think I saw an interview where he said I was good. He said I was doing some good wrestling. So I'm going to take that.
Dude, you got it. I'm very impressed. I haven't seen the second season yet, but I saw all the first season and the little bit that you get in the ring, I was like, oh man, like he's got some Soul Man moves. It's fantastic, man. The mustache helps a lot. It's a great mustache. I grew it out mine just for this interview. I've been working on this for 2 months.
You got to have sideburns in the stash.
So considering we see that both of your characters across 3 different time periods, Rock's continuously growing, obviously. So we have the 3 different actors, but it stays the same with you guys. Do you ever approach Rocky or Ada differently depending on which time period they're in?
Yeah, there's always, I guess, outside sort of forces in terms of them, where they're at kind of in their marriage or financially. There's a lot of differences between how we see them living in Hawaii in the 80s with his fame, and they've kind of in a really nice place. And then, when we fast forward to sort of teenage years and she's working odd jobs and they're trying to, kind of, I think in season 1, we saw them sort of eating food that they had been given by people, that kind of thing. So I think all those, just like in life, all of those kind of circumstances that happen around you are bound to have an effect on how you just move through the world, and then the bills pile up and all that sort of stuff. So it's definitely keeping a track of kind of where we're at in terms of where we're at financially. Has Rocky been on the road? When was the last time we saw each other? Are we fighting? Is Dewey behaving himself, or am I sort of, a sole parent? Like all that kind of stuff. So it's really important to make a note of that stuff so that it comes through in the performances. It's definitely not the same.
Mm-hmm. I think it happens subconsciously. Like when I'm with Adrian, it's like, well, he's, little kid, so automatically I go into like protective parent mode, I guess. And I think that shows up. Then when I'm acting with Bradley, it's more of like, I'm trying to be the older brother that I wish I had. And I think that happens on screen. That's kind of their relationship too. And then with Uli, it's just kind of like, yeah, that kid, like my homie, but don't forget, I'm still your daddy. I gotta take those. That's kind of how I play it. I don't know if that, hopefully maybe that's good.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating when you say it like that, and also talking about where they are financially, because we see their when they're successful and when they're just dirt poor, and I mean and so that's fascinating, and I'm sure that can get confusing as an actor to kind of go back and forth when you're filming different things like that. Last question. I'm assuming when you signed on for Young Rock, and I'm making this assumption purely based on the fact that I'm a giant wrestling fan, but I'm assuming that you had to do some homework. So what is your all-time favorite wrestling match with The Rock? And bonus points, Joe, if you can tell me your favorite Rocky Johnson match.
Go ahead, Stacey.
Oh, goodness me. You know what? I think it came with the this. Oh no, I don't want to give anything away, but there's a match that we see in season 2 that has a very, I guess, iconic costume that Dwayne came out in, and that was interesting to go back and watch that one, because before being cast in Young Rock, I wasn't really that big a wrestling fan. So a lot of that research has come for me in the last 2 years since being cast. So I think that one just stands out for me purely because of the costume.
I haven't even seen it, and I have a feeling I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But don't spoil it. I want to wait and see. I want to see if I was right.
I'm not a big favorites guy. I like all the matches. I think probably my favorite Rock moment is when he was in those slacks and those dress shoes, and he hit that gliding people's elbow. That was kind of.
I remember that. I remember exactly what you're talking about.
And then when it came to Rocky, I just kind of watched everything and tried to piece it together. Try to get his sunset flip right. Try to get the drop kicks right. I wasn't really focused on the match per se. It's more of him doing his moves, his technical moves.
Awesome. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I don't want to take up any more of your time, but I'm a big fan of the show, and you guys are both amazing on it. So thank you for taking the time.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, bye. Have a good night.
See ya.
I'm a big fan of the show. I haven't got to watch the second season yet, so there's going to be no spoiler talk. But I'm a big fan. First off, Matthew, Andre the Giant, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I saw him at Saturday Night's Main Event in 1988. I was like 5 years old. I still remember that. I was curious, what materials did you use to prepare for Andre? Like, what was it, his promos or The Princess Bride? Or I guess what I'm asking is, how many times did you say, does anybody want a peanut?
I kept that for the most part out of it. I'm hoping that one day the show will kind of visit that side of it. But I think I started with a David Letterman interview that he did, and just getting that natural speak that he has, or getting, when he's just conversing, excuse me. So that was important to kind of get that. So it was more of just the conversational speak that I really needed to kind of get down. It's one thing to have a French accent. It's another thing to barely be understandable with a French accent. So those are the things that were a little difficult moving, kind of as I started the whole process.
Anna, we see Leah across 3 different time periods during the show. Do you ever approach her differently depending on which time period she's in?
That's a good question, but no. I guess in terms of costume, once I put my costume on, then I just automatically switch onto whatever I need to do.
Yeah.
There was an instance where we were back in the 60s, and for some reason, I just automatically went into the 60s. And there we portray how Utter and Rocky met. And so it's almost like a change in my own physical being rather than mentally, because you're still the mother, you're still the grandmother or mother at the time. So no, it's just about getting myself mentally prepared, because once I put the costume on, I'm no longer Anna, I am Leah, regardless of the time period, because so that's how I set myself up. And there is no difference, because you're a mother or a mother-in-law from from whatever age you are till the grave. So it wasn't something difficult. It was just a sort of a mental switch.
Sure. That makes sense. I was just curious about it because, you never know, like, if there was a different version of her in your mind with, the 80s or 90s or so on and so forth. Matthew, I remember you wore Andre's red trunks in the first season, but will you ever put on the iconic one-strap black singlet? And if you've already tried it on, is it comfy?
I have tried it on. It was both exhilarating and a little scary, because it is something to put on. And and I'm not 400 pounds, but when I was weighing 330 pounds myself, it was a little scary. I am really looking forward to and am hoping that within a certain time of the show that Andre will definitely don the one piece, and I'm looking forward to that for sure.
So I'm assuming when you signed on for Young Rock that you guys both had some homework to do, and this might be an assumption out of left field, but I'm a huge wrestling fan, so I gotta ask, what's your favorite wrestling match with The Rock? And bonus points, Matt, if you can tell me your favorite Andre match as well.
Okay.
Not to put you guys on the spot. Well,
I've seen so many, but I'll tell you, just recently I saw an Andre match in Japan. He was a little older and a little more cranky, and he was fighting. I can't remember who it was now, but the guy, he was a Japanese wrestler who took it a little too far and was very real, to the point where they got into a serious some blows that were legitimate, and they had to separate them. And it was a legitimate deal that went a little too far. That for me was a really cool thing to see.
I can't remember who that is, but I feel like I vaguely remember that match as well. It's a little vague. It's a little vague because I've seen so many of them. I'd like to go to the vague ones instead, because some of the iconic ones, and obviously when he fought
Hulk, WrestleMania 3. And again, I'm hoping that one day we can put that on film and show the world that again, from Andre's perspective. But that was kind of the one. And as far as Dwayne goes, some of his matches with Stone Cold were unbelievable.
So good.
Yeah.
What about you, Anna?
Well, I grew up. I actually saw some of these wrestlers when I was young back in New Zealand. So Peter Maivia, the Wild Samoans, and I'm sure Andre the Giant came out, but that was then.
Yeah.
So that experience was wrestling, and I have a grandson who still has his action wrestling people. So when he knew his grandmother was in this, he got them out again, and he's 60. Oh, he's 16 years old, and he's got them out again, and he's demonstrated them. So wrestling is a great part of my life as well, in terms of on a personal level.
Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I'm a big fan of the show, and you guys are both wonderful on it. So thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you, Chris.